And of course, I mean, we talked a lot about the early game for Obey, but when you saw that they started with that 2v2 start initially, and it was just dual lane versus dual lane, do you think that it was wrong for Elevate to try and take that boxing matchup?
It's weird, right? Because Uller and Faf are so strong at it. So, I mean, how do you not take it, right? Even though they can clear creep, it's just so strong.
I mean, unless you're against a Muzen Cabra, nobody really wants to go against that.
Yeah, I can imagine, but now we get a chance to see what exactly both sides are going to be facing off against with picks and bans, game number 2, and Elevate one more time, going to be running it back with the first pick selection. And you actually brought it up before we even got into the set. Like, when you win the first game, you kind of just get that advantage of being able to have the preference. Do we want first pick or second pick? So for Elevate to opt for that first pick, what do you think about this?
They're just comfortable with it. They like it. Honestly, I want to see the Artio again. To be that far behind and then continue to just play so well, I just want to see it coming back out.
I wouldn't be surprised if they go for a similar triple Guardian, double Hunter composition. I don't necessarily expect Obey Alliance to allow them to have the Artio actually after that. Cherryo is such a serious threat, but if you ban away the Artio, now maybe you're not banning away the Athena, so it's difficult to pinpoint against a Guardian jungler.
In this sort of circumstance, it's kind of just sacrifices have to be made on both sides, because you can take away the Raijin, but then you leave something else open for Obey that they might want, and then Obey, if they try to respond, taking away that Artio, well, you leave open a couple of other of Cherryo's choices, and they seem very confident still choosing to take away the Naja.
Naja is just a serious threat. You don't necessarily have to build Naja very damage-oriented. You could still go resilient option here, get people in the sky because you have those ring bounces to shred away some of the protections, and that's going to allow DeathPanter for an easy follow-up.
I actually love tank Naja, right? Because you can just take people out of the fight, and then you just run around ring bouncing, right? And that you're doing your job. You're just stopping other people from playing.
It's just a different form of that utility jungle style, but still sticking to their guns. Obey Alliance, banning away Naja and Athena, and still same exact story like last game. Elevate first picking this Artio.
And I do respect Obey's decision to still commit to the Naja Athena. I feel as though Cherryo's gameplay on both of those gods, it just provides way too much to the team fighting environment. I love this first pick Hui selection because we didn't get a whole lot of chance to talk about it, but DeathPanter was coming up massive, and even in the studios, there were a couple of EU players mentioning that he's probably the best Hui mid in EU.
And on top of this, if Elevate try to go for a triple Guardian composition against the Hui, once those suns come down, it's difficult for Elevate's backline to follow up from those frontliners, and that's going to dissect the team fight into 2 places.
Absolutely. Hui's ult, just out of basically all the Hunter ults, it's so hard to fight into, and as a Guardian, if you have to sit there and tank a Hui ult, you're just out of the fight. You just lose. You eat 600-700 damage. That's it.
Obviously, nobody wants to get trapped up underneath those suns, but Cabrakan also being stripped away from Obey, also funneling into what Elevate have kind of been sticking with. And the AMC, one more time, we've seen a lot of action from this B.
I am loving Elevate's comp right now, so hopefully it's Artio jungle again. But you have Cab that's going to deal well with Sylv. He's okay. He can run at Hui pretty well, like we were talking about earlier. He can definitely run at it. But then you have AMC. They have so much pressure. They have so much control and peel for their right now 1 Hunter.
Is this Elevate's composition of anti-Sylvanus?
It's pretty up there. I mean, what does Sylv do when he gets Cabwalled? He sits there and ults and hopes it's enough.
I think that was another issue that we saw EmilZy actually encountering quite a lot. Every single time he would look for that blink ultimate engage with the Sylvanus, you had DeathPanter removed, like just jumping away from it. And now that that's not going to pose as much of an issue, do you think that Obey is still going to try and have EmilZy as that sole initiation factor?
Yeah, I definitely, he's going to blink and hit AMC basically whenever he wants.
Well, this time it's an against an Muzen comp, right? That doesn't have an escape like that Hui did the last game, so that could be an easy target for EmilZy. Obey Alliance banning away some more Guardians despite a Cabrakan and Artio still on the table.
What are the chances we see an Ymir come out?
That's true. Obey Alliance did ban away Ymir that first game, and knowing how flexible some of these frontliners from Elevate are, that wouldn't be a bad idea, especially against the Sylvanus. If their strategy is to take out Sylvanus, then Ymir is probably a high priority pick here.
Right now, I like the Ymir into Sylv, right? You can wall him off, you freeze him. You know, there's definitely issues, but Sylv has a lot of, like, his root is such a good tool of dealing with him because you can just space the Ymir all game. If you play it well, the Ymir can't play against you.
And I can't help but notice Serqet is also another available god. CaptainTwig, I mean, he was one of the first people to break out that tank Serqet build alongside of Raffer, and I think that could possibly come into play, especially with the Artio.
Yeah, Serq's just a strong pick, right? It's what is she struggling to, like Gab, Gab, Sobex, and
disruption.
Other than that, yeah,
easy disruption. And Obey Alliance last game, they last picked the Nemesis, and they have Nemesis and Serqet still available. And I think those are the best two junglers to try to deal with an Artio.
Yeah, I mean, you just lock him out, or
there he is. The Ymir is here, ladies and gentlemen. Elevate with another triple Guardian composition now. How do they wrap things up here? Are they going to put another physical hunter here?
I would have maybe thought that Dardez could have possibly leaned towards the Ares here, but with the Raijin and Hui already being on the table, that just is way too much central CC for attacking the Ares, that anytime you try to get that ult off, you're probably going to end up dying. And the Rom pick for Jermain, how do you think this is going to pan out?
I think Jermain's going to do great. I mean, that's his god, right?
That's true.
And
this is amazing to see it finally here. The first time yesterday, Rom was not prioritized at all in North America, but Jermain certainly loves this god, and for a good reason too. He's been making a name for himself with this god between his insane high mechanical skill on the snipes and then his timing of when he goes in to steal some of these objectives. He's been truly respected among both European and North American fronts.
What I love about this Rom is every time Raijin ults, he's just going to eat Rom snipes. And when they do go on the AMC, Rom's going to hang out in the air, and he'll be fine.
Well, that's actually a really great way to look at it. It's going to be Serqet sealing the deal for Obey here. And now, Jeff, I got to ask you really quick, who do you think's taking it away here?
I like Elevate's draft.
You know what? I was on the Obey bandwagon the last game. The way Elevate played, though, it's got to get me to switch things up. Ymir is here, and I'm going with Elevate.
I'm liking Elevate's draft a lot myself as well, but we'll get a chance from the casters to see just who wins it in game number 2.
Thank you, Taco. I'm Finch, got Graham here with me for game 2 between Obey and Elevate, and those drafts look good.
They do look good, and the one thing that I find not surprising, but with the Ymir locked in for Dardez here, more than likely in the duo lane, I expected we were going to see a Nemesis until the Ymir was locked in.
Sure.
When Ymir comes out, the walls cause so many problems for a Nemesis to get in and out of the combat as fast as she wants to. The adaptation to switch to Serqet, true damage, remember, from that ultimate, she can get to the back line very, very quickly.
That's
she can wrap around the back and go for these carries, which... One of the carries, AMC, limited mobility. We always talk about that.
Yeah.
The difference in the last game is they couldn't punish through the front line. They had to manually penetrate through the front line first. This time they've got someone that can get to the back line a little bit easier. Elevate could struggle a little bit more in this. I know the desk love the actual comp from Elevate, me too, but I still think this Serqet could be the issue.
Yeah, it's going to be high execution for them. We got this game ready to go. Elevate versus Obey. Elevate doing maybe a bit of an upset, winning that game 1 into game 2 now, and this is to punch your ticket to HRX. Elevate only have 2 more enemy Titans to bring down if they want to make it.
And that's the funny thing, is that a lot of people at home will be going, yeah, that is an upset for Obey to lose that game. Some of the teams here from Europe have all been talking about Elevate, saying, listen, do not be shocked if they take games over Obey. A lot of the teams here actually predicting this will go all 5 games. And the way it started in game 1, over 50 minutes in game 1, we could be going all 5 games. See how game 2 goes down, however.
This one's going to be real important. This is where a 5-game set's important. Is actually we see a little bit of action. Dardez getting rooted out by EmilZy, but no more follow-up from that one. As this game, we see Ataraxia on the Hoi after DeathPanter played it so well last game.
Notice the difference as well. Not Cherryo in the solo lane here. Oh, sorry, not Cabrakan in the solo lane. It's Artio. You know why as well? Take into account Xaliea was on the Sobek against a Cabrakan. Cabrakan struggled against the Sobek because of the tail whip stopping some of the clear with those tremors.
And there's a lot of disruption, but this was the 2v2, Graham, that went so well for Obey last game. Not the same gods, but it was EmilZy, Ataraxia up against Dardez and Jermain. They did a real 2v2 in that duo, and they got a lot of pressure. This time, though, Elevate are the ones that are already moving towards that purple.
Keyword there is pressure. Notice the start coming out from CaptainTwig. Stole away the speed buff straight away. Didn't even go towards the wave, just looked to steal the speed buff. Fight on the left, though. EmilZy's nearly dead.
EmilZy is in trouble here. Everyone's pushing in forward, but they just go for the buff instead. Yeah,
it was the sprint that was part from EmilZy. We've only been level 1, level 2. You don't have the damage output to bring him down just yet, but stripping away the jungle is key. So left-hand side dominance is Elevate, and it will be with a Ymir Rama in lane against a Hoi Sylvanus. Sylvanus. Obviously a bit more sustained with the EmilZy Sylvanus there, but they won't have wave clear advantage. Ymir is just a little bit better, a little bit quicker than that of a Sylvanus.
And on the right side, Obey are at least the ones getting those fire elementals, so it looks like the jungle solo lane side maybe is going to Obey, and then Elevate are the ones getting this duo lane side of the map. But last game, it kind of didn't matter where that pressure was. It went 50 minutes, and it all kind of came out in the wash.
And it may happen again in this game, too. The big keys in this one, once again, is going to be CaptainTwig. How is his play style going to work out here on this Serqet? He's going to be looking for Panther. That'll be prime target number 1, just because he can't leap away the same way that Jermain can with the rollout or use his ultimate to get out of the combat. Other targets in the front line, definitely useful to have true damage on Serqet with the ultimate too, because that means that's just going to shred through the protections and ignore the protections coming out from these Guardians and tanks on the front side.
That's what makes the target selection for Twig so important, as Xalia's got a significant lead over no numbers. No surprise with that Guardian and solo over there, but where CaptainTwig chooses to put the pressure is going to be so big because, as you said, he can viably kind of go for anybody, really, on this Serqet. But last game, it was the backline getting away that was a big problem, as Ataraxia takes a little bit of poke.
Not a terrible idea as well for Twig to focus the right-hand side of the map, but he's going to walk into 2. I don't think he realized there was 2 there. He does now. He's like, nope, changed my mind about that one. Hold up a second. There wasn't just 1 dude doing that. There was 2. I'll go back, and I like what he's doing, though. Focus the right-hand side a little bit more. Leave EmilZy and Ataraxia to stay alive. Good trades between the 2.
Actually gets the turnaround stun from Dardez, so they both end up taking poke. But as long as both are taking equal poke, it's got to favor that sustain EmilZy's bringing.
It will, but at the same time, I mean, even poke in this day and age with how people are starting with Bomber's Masks and the Watcher's Gifts for the supports, you can take a little bit of damage and be okay. The Watcher's Gift sustains the Guardians back up, and then Bomber's Mask for Jermain, Bomber's Mask for Ataraxia. They can go in the jungle, clear a camp, and be quite healthy, the same way Panther's doing in mid on that AMC.
And this time, it feels like Elevate are going with slightly chunkier Guardians over there. What I mean by that is they can do a little bit more damage. Like, Amir can do some pretty significant damage, as can Cabrakan. Instead, it was like Fafnir last game, I believe. You know, it wasn't like they were getting a bunch of it. They were really, really relying on DeathPanter and Jermain. The
differences in these Guardians, though, is that they don't have the amount of mobility coming out of them that you would see from, like, there's a Fafnir. You know, the escape, the jumping away, the jumping into combat and out of combat from someone like Fafnir is very useful. These Guardians, though, a little bit less mobility. Very flat-footed is the best way of putting it here. They're all going to have to manually run into combat most of the time unless they go for blinks, and one of those you can see on Cherryo already.
This time, though, a lot of pressure put from Elevate onto this speed buff. They don't want to let CaptainTwig come over and steal this away again. So they rotate over several members, defend it, and CaptainTwig's got to go find his farm elsewhere.
Yeah, and this would be a slow-paced start to the game, I expect. It's more than anything, you'll be looking for Cherryo to maybe blink initiate on somebody. More than likely, prime targets aren't really that, you know, available. The best target for him is probably CaptainTwig, if anything, looking to get a pick on. Ataraxia is going to be under his tower most of the early game, which means he's not going to be available. And Prime is pretty prime. Like, he's also got a very good mobile god with 2 forms of escape, one with the ultimate and one with the jump away as well. And with a bead, going to make it very tricky for Cherryo to find any picks early on.
And I'm not too surprised it's slow either. Sometimes after a long set, you kind of got to do a bit of a mental reset. I mean, you're not two-shotting people anymore, you know, and you're not super tanky.
And you're not super tanky.
So you got to kind of walk back into that just a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if they play a little slow.
Because sometimes we've seen that happen in the past where teams forget, hang on a second, we're at 5 minutes in, and we're not at 50 anymore. I'm not going to be able to take, you know, 1,000 shots of an ultimate and still survive. Like, Prime swinging at you this time with an ultimate early game will actually hurt a lot more than it did in the later stages against those shells.
So that's what we're seeing. Red buff spawning up for Elevate. They won't have a problem taking this one away. They want to go for the neutral farm instead, which is the right call. This is where you start stripping it away and looking to build some kind of early lead. But last game, it felt like it was Obey that got out to the early start and Elevate had to recover. This time, Elevate have done a good job keeping it more even.
Well, they've done a better job just because of composition-wise. Ymir, Rama together is going to outpush Ataraxia on that Hou-Yi and Sylvanus. Just because they've got better wave clear with the Rama. And the Rama versus Hou-Yi is Rama's advantage. And Sylvanus versus Ymir is close, but it favors Ymir because he will basically one-shot the wave earlier on, where Sylvanus has to put out sustained autos.
Now, I want to ask you, do you think there's any significance? EmilZy and PrettyPriMe, I think they're the only ones playing the same god they played last time. Does sort of getting into that groove sort of help? Because, I mean, PrettyPrime's even on the same build path as Dardez and Cherryo are lurking around.
Oh, he got him! He got him over the wall! Hi, Panther, how you doing? Oh, the lock-up from EmilZy was beautiful! He didn't know Cherryo was coming, but Cherryo came over the wall, got hit by the ultimate too. There was no escape.
And now jumping in is CaptainTwig as well.
Oh, Lord.
Dardez has to go right into the shard device, try and respond to it. Gets the stun. Sunbreaker falls down on top of it too. And then locking him down. It is CaptainTwig. 2 quick kills for Obey at the start again.
Well, you mentioned it in game 1, Finch. You said, listen, when you play Sylvanus, you find those hot pulls, you win the games for your team. That was a great play from Obey.
Oh, yeah.
The ward placement, obviously it's a natural ward to be placed down by Obey there. If Elevate had a sentry ward there and cleared the vision, that wouldn't have happened. But it gets caught on the rotation. They were looking for a trap themselves, and in the end, DeathPanter didn't know that was coming until it was way too late. Way too late. And bad news bears, Cherryo Blink was beautiful to support his teammate. He knew his teammate was in trouble. Yeah. He responded the best way he could. The bad news is that he did it exactly the same time. EmilZy's trying to use his ult. He gets knocked up straight away.
And I agree. That's the type of play that puts Sylvanus from an okay support up to a top tier, you got to pick him kind of support. And EmilZy, like you said earlier, these are pros. EmilZy is one of the best supports we have, and he's showing you why. If you stand there next to him on a ward, he'll pull you in, no problem.
It was just a great play. That's all it was. Yeah. It was a great individual play that's actually given Obey a tiny bit of a lead. It's not game-changing overall. Right inside, though, Xaliea been in trouble, but he is a Sobek, so he's not worried too much against this gank potential.
You know, able to clear him out a little bit and head back towards zone tower as CaptainTwig able to pull those fire elementals and help himself out a little bit with that farm. So as you said, it's not as if anything's kind of gotten out of control from that early win. Prime maybe a little bit out in front of DeathPanter now since he got the kill and DeathPanter did take a spill, but that's about it.
Well, that's the only key there is the Warlock Sash now completed there for PrettyPriMe, so he's already stacking that up, which means by around the 14-15 minute mark, he's going to be close to completing that. It is 100 stacks, I believe, so it's going to take a little bit of time, but he will be fully stacked, which means he's getting that extra health, that extra damage out from that Warlock Sash as well, which we've not seen too much of. Does need to be a little bit tankier because we saw how much burst potential the Elevate will put up with these double hunter compositions.
And you talked about how this time Elevate aren't quite as mobile because of the Guardians they picked this time. That's scary considering Ataraxia on this Sunbreaker. With that big ultimate slowing them already, they can't just jump out of it anymore. They're going to be in there taking that damage.
Well, Jeff brought it up on the desk as well. Jeff and I was talking about the fact that, listen, some of these gods against against a whole Yi, the Suns rain down, and the Suns are going to do a lot of damage, so a lot of sustained damage in these engagements.
Good wall.
They will be tanky, though, will Elevate, so they will be able to hold on to some of it for the time being.
They will be able to try and stick around just a little bit. Kind of backing up here is Elevate. Kind of just coming back to parity at this point. It looks like they're trying to get a pause going here is what it is. Coming out by no numbers over there on Elevate. They try and get everything going one more time.
So no real surprises how this game has started. Obviously, Elevate, bit of a different situation than game 1 where they've got a bit of better control in terms of wave clear against the dual lane. So they didn't fall as far behind. Obey haven't established as much of a lead. The 2 kills that they found, obviously, was an individual play from EmilZy, which also slows the tempo down for a moment or two once more.
And that's what happened there in this game. You're right. They were able to keep an even start. They do kind of give up those 2 kills in mid, which does hurt just a little bit, but it's not out of control as I felt like it was in game 1, which apparently wasn't too far out of control. They were able to bring that one back, but I talked about this a little bit before. We didn't get a chance to go too in-depth with it, but Prime and EmilZy are still on the same ones they were on before. They have a chance to sort of get into a groove here.
And you do get in a groove. I mean, they've all played these characters enough, though, that they would have scrimmed with every single character they're playing. They would have just pulled it out of the bag. But, yeah, you get a warm-up game on it, so EmilZy's, sort of hooks would be a little bit on point, and why not just give Prime Raijin every time if he's going to put up 60k plus player damage in the game? Even if you lose, I'm not going to be upset about my mage doing that much damage.
No. Not at all. And PrettyPriMe looked good on the right, and he's looking good on it again. And we're looking good here as we're ready to head right back into the game.
We are looking good today. I will say that.
Not too bad.
We are looking good today, me and you, Finch.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you, Graham.
Oh, I meant
everyone
me
heard
really,
it. It's recorded.
I meant me mainly. But,
no, you said we, and everyone heard it.
I know I said we. I was being the formal we. It wasn't supposed to be that way.
Sure. Well, either way, Obey Alliance going to try and move a little bit on that small lead. They have only about 700 or so gold, but it's the beginnings of it. Elevate, though, looks like they were the ones that got those oracles, so again, the left side of the map still a little bit going in their favor.
Sure, just for the time being, though, and it's going to be a farm-off between the Hunters, which you'll see the Guardians will start to rotate a little bit more towards the mid lane from now on. They won't hang around too much in the dual lane. They'll start to head back there around level 12 because I expect to see Blinks coming online for EmilZy and Dardez more than likely. Specifically for Dardez, definitely I feel for Dardez, just because he's on that Ymir. The sprint's going to be useful, but being able to blink engage with a Ymir causes so many problems for the enemy team.
Another thing to talk about, Graham, last game, Obey was kind of forced to go into really defensive. Everyone bought purification beads just about. This time we see Xaliea going with that meditation, so we don't see a whole lot of.
Funny enough, meditation, I feel very underrated at the moment. A lot of people remember the old days of meditation. Shell replaced it there, basically. In the early game, Shell is fantastic, and meditation kind of weak. The reason it gets stronger, though, is the longer the game goes, when you're level 20, you're going to get the maximum usage out of that meditation. And a solo laner with meditation is going to get maximum usage out of it. Doesn't just give you health as well. Let's just put that into account. Doesn't just give you health, it gives you mana as well.
Sure.
And that mana means you've got a little bit more for PrettyPriMe on that mage. You've got another rotation of abilities available for the whole team. That mana comes into play, especially for someone like Sobek, who's, actually, to be fair, the mana cost did get reduced on Sobek, so it's not as important as it once was. But mana comes into play. It's not just about sustain in terms of healing.
Yeah, now it's like keep them alive for one more hit and they can jump out or something like that. You're right.
Yep.
It can be pretty impactful for them. So that's what we're going to be looking for Xaliea when he rotates in, how well he can come in and use that meditation or that relic to have a big team fight. I remember that's kind of when things blew up last game, once we saw new numbers in Xaliea start to rotate in a team fight.
And the one thing about Meditate that's different to Shell too, even though we see more Shell than not, is Shell is only temporary. Meditate is permanent health. Like that doesn't disappear after a few seconds and tick back down. If you don't get damage done to you, you're just going to be healthier overall. So Meditate, still a viable option, just not seen too much. Xaliea going with it. And Xalia's always been one that's not too scared of, going against the flow of traffic to an extent in terms of what's classed as meta.
I think that's what Xalia's greatest strength is. He's also someone that we've seen play a lot of this solo back too, the Sobek and solo rather. But so I know that this he can pilot quite confidently. And once he starts being a big impact here, the setup with him before, they talked about on the desk last time it was just EmilZy initiating. Now there's a chance for Xaliea to do a little bit of that.
Precisely. I mean, he's not going to be scared to go in and find a pluck. And if you find a pluck on any of these targets, doesn't matter which one realistically, they can be so far out of position that Prime and Ataraxia can burst them down before reinforcements can arrive to support.
And things are going, as we said, a little bit slower here in this game, and that's because Obey recognizing, they kind of let that last one get away from them in that team fight on that last game. They need to get those 3 wins to take their trip straight to HRX instead of dropping down in groups where we know how strong Space Station is after what we saw yesterday. Energy, we know how well they can play. You don't want to be down there in groups. Yeah,
this would be more of a chess match, this one, at least for the first start of the game. I'm predicting around 18, 19 minutes, I'm going to say, where we start to see the first sort of looks towards the goal fury. That's when we'll see the fights engage. And Elevate team composition grouped up again. They go for the same sort of thing. Once again, though, Obey going to be a slightly different with Twig on this Serqet. He will be in a bit of a different scenario here. He's not just going to be going for a tank. He's going to be looking to go to the back line. So a bit more pressure onto Jermain and DeathPanter this game.
And I'm happy to see that from him because Jermain and DeathPanter, it felt like were
unchecked.
Yeah, almost like free casting back there last time. Like they kind of were doing whatever they wanted. As it looks like we do have one more pause coming out here from EmilZy, trying to get everything sorted out going into this game. No blame him.
Yeah, just another pause coming out here. Be a quick one, hopefully, as well. We'll get some more data for that. But so far, the game is going as expected. After game 1, obviously the roles change in terms of what gods are being picked, so there's pressure on different parts of the map. It's all really been just that one little pick at the start from EmilZy with that pull over the wall, which was a nice
a hot pull.
And that god's excited for a second, but it's back to, okay, farming. I'm predicting 18 minutes still for the first goal fury.
And I think that this is the right call. Last game, it kind of got off to a pretty quick start, Graham. There was a lot of action early on. I think it was like 9 kills we saw pretty early on in that game. So this time, come out, let's get everyone farmed up, try and make sure that we got our comp to the position where we're comfortable fighting. Don't take some of those 50-50s. Get one where we're more guaranteed to win.
And that's the thing, what Obey's strategy is going to be, because funny enough, in the first game, Obey picked and chose their strategy and their engagements very well.
Yeah.
When they got into a lead, they started to try and continue the pressure. I mentioned it, they've been trying to strangle Elevate out of the game. Problem is that they didn't strangle them properly, and they actually just left them room to breathe. Too much room to breathe, so it got turned around on them, and that's where the issues were. So far, so good for both teams in game 2. No one's really got a lead, and no one's really out of it at all. I wouldn't say anyone's going to fall behind by this game going longer. If anything, Elevate's going to have advantages with having both their Hunters get to their full build maximum potential, and a little bit tankier for their Guardians. Whereas as well, Obey, same sort of thing. They're not going to be upset because the damage they did last game, as I mentioned on PrettyPriMe on that Raijin, and Ataraxia's damage output will be consistent in game 2 here. So when they get to the later stages, they're going to be in a very similar spot.
I think the big difference in this game, Graham, is the Guardians that Elevate chose. Like, remember last game, let's say that Twig puts his ultimate onto no numbers. Oh, numbers just immediately goes into Dragonic Corruption. He's literally just immune, out of combat. This time, they don't have an escape button. They don't have a get out of jail free card.
They don't, but it's not a nemesis they're dealing with either. And that's the other thing. It's going to be a Serqet this time around.
Still scary.
Serqet can definitely shut some things down in this engagement and will cause more problems, but he's definitely not going to be focusing the tanks as much this game, unless the tank's out of position. If the tank's too far forward or being left alone, he'll use his ult there, like we saw in the Ymir in the mid lane. It's like, well, I'm going to use the ult here. There's no carries to get hold of, so we'll go to this, Makes sense.
And that's what makes this Serqet pick so scary for me, at least, is that he does have that flexibility to go either direction in this game. If he wants to try and isolate like we saw here and try and lock down Dardez, then he can. Or if he wants to go to the back line like we saw him get that on Xaliea, he can do that too and try and disrupt with that silence.
I noticed the Hou-Yi Suns again. We just saw it in that little engagement there for that second kill. The Hou-Yi Suns against some of these Guardians is going to be very useful because they're going to take the brunt of those Suns. So it's free damage that's going to be out every single fight. Sylvanus ultimate as well on top of that means that they stay in the Suns an extra second longer, which takes a couple more ticks, a little bit more damage. And then meanwhile, all that's going on, Raijin in the back line just banging on some drums, causing some problems.
And it's not, and that's pretty important too. But remember, in game 1, they ban away the ROM pick, right?
They do.
This time, I believe it's Jermain who's piloting the ROM this time. So clearly, it was something that Obey were worried enough about to try and take it away from him. Now Jermain has it on it. Is he going to be able to use this ROM to what I think Obey might have been a little afraid of?
Jermain's best god is Rama. He's one of his go-to gods, and they will know he's going to have to play Rama at some point in this set.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're going to see him play Rama, and you can't really stop that. What they can do is stop other decisions that have been made coming out from Elevate in Game 1 to make sure it doesn't happen again. Specifically with some of the target prioritization of stripping away the Hou-Yi so they don't have as strong of an early game clear in the jungle. Also, on top of that, you've also got the issues of making sure they don't get the Xing 10 because no numbers caused issues with that game too.
And we talked a little bit about how they don't have that that get out of jail free card. Jermain kind of does, actually. He does. He can go up into the air and shoot back down. So if he's the one that's under duress by the Serqet, he'll have a moment. Fortunately, though, there are a lot of kind of dot damages from like the poison from Serqet. Even Sylvanus whiff can get you when you're up there too. So he can get away from some of it, but not all.
And it's actually DeathPanter who's going to be the prime target for everybody to really be looking at here. AMC, we always talk about him being very immobile. When AMC gets focused down, DeathPanter needs to have a very big game here. He had a fantastic game on the Hou-Yi in Game 1. Game 2, DeathPanter is a real talking point here. The kid's come pretty much, I think he's one of the major parts of Elevate's success. Everyone's looking towards Cherryo, expecting Cherryo to be the reason, and the Frenchman and the dual lane. But your mid is such an important role. You have to play it well, and Panther's really grown into his own here in that position on this team.
And I like what they did with their picks. We talked about it a little bit before it starts, but if you're really going to be relying on just a few people for damage, a Muzen Cobb's the guy to do that.
He really is.
We do have the game ready to get going back here for you. So if you're not going to get damage from very many sources, let DeathPanter do it on AMC.
There's good news as well, because AMC doesn't work as well as he will against some other compositions. The reason I'm saying that is because one of the things that AMC has in his kit, that one of the reasons we see a little bit more play of him, is the disarm. Part of the bees, the spread of the bees. But look at the composition Obey have. There's not that many that are really focused on auto-attacking in this composition. Xalia's not going to be too bothered about it. Neither's Prime. Ataraxia is the only one that's like, please don't hit me with bees. The rest are like, okay, sure, I can still use my abilities. That's where most of my damage will come from.
And we talked about this a little bit before, but this ceasefire we're seeing, this sort of slower pace, do you think it favors any one team over the other?
No, I don't think it does, because they both grow so well into the later stages of the game. If anything, it's going to be when these solo laners turn up to the fight. We saw how strong Artio was in the jungle last game for Elevate, now being played in the solo lane. Means that he's going to be a bit tankier, a little bit quicker than what we saw out of Cherryo. But then again, you've now got Xaliea, who's going to be much more of a frontline engager this time round. We saw him play the Cabrakan last game. He wasn't really blinking to initiate the fights. It was mainly left to Sylvanus and EmilZy. So this time round on the Sobek, he can always be on the front line looking for a pluck, which means that Elevate have to play further back. Even if you're a tank, you've got to be aware of that pluck coming to play. Keep an eye on Dardez, though. His walls could actually save members. You throw a wall up behind the Sobek as he plucks in, it means that they'll hit the wall, your teammate, and not go through it, which means they don't get pulled out of position. Very tricky play to make, but someone of Dardez's caliber on your mate could make that happen.
And what's another big difference for him here is going to be CaptainTwig on that Serqet. If you're Elevate, you're hitting that tab screen. Everything you're seeing under CaptainTwig says he wants backline this game.
Yep.
He's got the blink trying to get down to the backline. He's tankier.
And Xaliea as well.
Some burst. Yeah.
Against 3 Guardians too, and Xaliea is going to be so useful because the first thing the Guardians are going to do is try and peel for their carry.
Gold Fury's been pulled here, though, Graham. Dardez is the one that's in a little bit of trouble. He has to go into the Shards of Ice, but it's not enough. PrettyPriMe gets the 3rd kill of the game. CaptainTwig is low. Cripplefield's enough, but the wall actually gives him a little bit of time to escape up into the air to finish it. Jermain gets the snipe.
Fight's still going on, though. When Jermain lands, he's got to roll away. Panther under a lot of pressure, and the lurking in the waters is good from Xaliea to keep the pressure on Panther. The bee is on the run, but the crocodile's giving chase.
And No Numbers goes back to try and slow down the aggression from the rest of the team, but he may have thrown his own life away in the process, and he did. 3 for 1 overall, only giving up CaptainTwig. Obey Alliance come back to try and pick up the Gold Fury.
Funny enough, that was mainly an Oracles fight more than anything else in that. It was a fight over the Oracles, and in the end, it's going to come up big. Xaliea made a big impact in that fight. Lurking in the waters is just one of those things where you're like, well, we can't kill him. and he's just going to keep running us down. And that just meant he just zoned them all away. So Obey get a free Gold Fury to an extent.
Obey Alliance have now pulled out about 3,000 gold in the lead, but Elevate showed us last game that just going down 3,000 to 5,000 is not going to put them away. They're able to stick around, especially with such a sturdy composition.
Definitely could have been a different story if Cherryo would have hit his ult a little bit better with that Cabrakan. Yes. The walls actually caused more problems for Elevate than
I think
created.
They helped Twig, yeah.
Yeah, and that can happen sometimes, unfortunately. EmilZy should be fine here, though. He's got Ataraxia in support, and Jermain would rather farm the wave here at this stage. Jermain picking up the kill, though, was important for them. It just shows, you know, he's on form with his Rama, at least. That's the main thing.
He hit that snipe, able to get the only death for Obey Alliance onto CaptainTwig. And it's important not just to get the kill to Jermain, but to slow Twig down a little bit too, yeah.
Sure, shut him down a little bit. And that was the thing about when we talked about the walls there, because the cripple field from no numbers was actually stopping Twig from getting away from any of that danger. He couldn't do anything. The walls prevented him from staying in range from the cripple field, which meant Twig escapes, forces Jermain to have to ult to secure that kill, which means that they don't have that ult later on to keep the pressure on the Gold Fury, because Jermain stayed alive, remember. Jermain holds that ultimate. The Gold Fury is a little bit tricky for Obey. They have to play around the Rama ultimate a little bit too.
And that's another thing we didn't talk about is PrettyPriMe takes a little love tap there over by those Harpies, is that CaptainTwig, with no numbers likely going to be trying to disrupt the backline of Obey, CaptainTwig kind of has to go into the backline. That cripple field really will disrupt him, as this is the pressure Obey was doing last game, trying to start off this portal demon.
And it's the same sort of pace from Obey. They got a lead and they're starting to strangle again. This time Elevate, though, a bit of a trickier situation. Xaliea on the front can take a bit of a damn beating on that Sobek at this stage, especially with the Void Stone and the Breastplate of Valor.
And that's what No Numbers is doing. He's locking down CaptainTwig on the right side. Obey Alliance do get the portal, but now they're actually just turning onto him as Jermain continues to split push. Sunbreaker goes down. No Numbers falls. Wrath of Terra knocks up 2 as well.
Good ult from EmilZy, and now Cherryo's going to stay in the fight to get his team out. The wall did not stop anyone from charging in. Freeze from Dardez allows Panther to turn it around. Twiggy got a little bit too greedy. What's Jermain going to do? He's going to go for the tier 2.
He is going to keep going. Cherryo blinks in, though, but he ends up getting turned and burned. The wall's not to lock him in, but I don't think they're trapped. You're trapped with them. They end up just turning off, but Jermain likely going to be able to keep pushing for a tier 2. Is that worth?
Even. I actually think this comes out even here. Portal Demon to Obey. The fight goes technically in Elevate's favor. I want to say with how this turns out. They're definitely going to go in their favor. They can find their kill, but Panther can't find those autos.
But Jermain comes up with the snipes.
Works out well for Elevate in the end. So 2 towers on the left-hand side.
And beats.
Great beats from Panther, though. For the Portal Demon, the fight was interesting from Obey because they realized Jermain was on the left. So they were like, we should take this fight. And the core was perfect. I think the chase afterwards was where it went wrong. When they turned that corner towards middle, like, get them, boys! They're on the run! We're routing them! They turn the corner into a Ymir and a B. And Twig disappears, and then the ones in trouble. Obey have to disengage, while Jermain gets all the free farm in the world and picks up a kill for not even being in the fight.
Another key difference between this and last time, as actually tier 1 and right falls, is that last game they had the Hu Yi, and we talked about how that sort of makes up for some of the AoE damage you're missing when you don't run a mage. This game they don't have that, but Obey cut away that disadvantage by funneling into that corridor, letting multiple people get hit by Control, multiple people get hit by DeathPanter.
Yeah, the only real AoE they've got is the AMC in the mid lane, throwing out all the swarms over and over again, and the bees spreading. Bees doesn't do that much damage, but Swarm does, and the honey's going to slow them down, but still tricky. Oh, Xaliea.
That's what can happen when you miss the pluck. Immediately gets him returned. CaptainTwig blinks in to slow him down, though. Lurking in the waters. Can't go through the ice wall, but it's enough to keep him safe for the time being. He couldn't get controlled. They'll be able to back off after taking some important cooldowns. I
want to see Elevate start to pressure mid lane now. Jermain doesn't need to be in that lane too much on the left-hand side anymore after clearing the wave. 2 towers down. You could even technically let Ataraxia free farm for a tier 1 and have Jermain start to pressure other areas of the map. Tier 2 on the right. Sorry, tier 1 on the right. Tier 1 in mid. Start to bring down these towers with the double hunters. Force Obey to play on the back foot instead.
And once again, PrettyPriMe looking big for Obey Alliance, sitting 4-0-2 on the Raijin. I don't think in any of these games so far, this whole set, he's really been under very much pressure. He's gotten that Warlock stash freely stacked, and he's ready to rock.
It's also the fact that we're talking about the slow Guardians they've got on this team. They're very manual, run-at-you, lumbering Guardians on this team. Outside of one blink, by the way, on Cherryo, he's the only one that could really get to Prime. But if Prime gets blinked on by Cabrakan, what happens?
They just turn him.
He just, that or Prime could just disengage. Prime's got an escape. He could also use his ultimate and turn it around himself of okay. Or third scenario, beads. You could just beads and go, okay, and now we blow you up. So Prime should be safe. If Prime dies too much, he's technically making the mistakes himself. It's not the other way around. It's not Elevate playing well. Prime will be out of position if he is to die.
And CaptainTwig responding to the double hunters that Elevate have picked up. Looks like he's got that mid-guardian mail to try and slow down some of that damage they're putting out.
Yeah.
Elevate actually pulling the Gold Fury, though.
Want to try and force a fight, that's what they're after here. They felt that how the last engagement went, especially when they didn't have Jermain, that went so well for themselves. They're like, you know what, we can take another fight. Let's try and use Ymir's walls to isolate some people. It's tricky who to isolate. The tree is the prime target, or the Sobek, just because of the walls.
But again, we're seeing it whenever they want to initiate it so telegraphed. The best one for them is the blink from Cherryo, and they're hitting those autos to kind of keep them in combat.
Precisely. Ataraxia looking to auto Cherryo as much as possible, and the autos from EmilZy too, doing the same sort of thing. They want to keep... It's only really Cherryo they're worried about with the blinks.
Good ricochet coming out there from Ataraxia, trying to get some poke off on a Jermain, who is down to about half health, as Obey looked to clear out a little bit more space.
Notice the Lotus Crown as well there on EmilZy, picked up with this Sylvanus. You'll see him use the Wisps. The Wisps don't just heal, they also give protections, and then Lotus Crown gives you some more protections. So what's they doing? Pop the Wisps, then look for the engage.
Xaliea does pluck Dardez back into danger. Rathatera knocks up 2 as well. Dardez is low, but he's able to walk his way out. Tycho Drums, though, pulls no numbers back into everybody from Obey Alliance. They turn around on him, but the Bear's able to just run away.
Is it the disengage from Elevate more so than anything? They saw the drums come out, they saw the Suns rain down, Sylvanus ult 2. Elevate have most of their ultimates still available. It's not doom and gloom, but they're just a little bit low here. Obey going to try and bring Elevate back in. They've got to be careful, though.
Jermain going up to try and contest the Gold Fury with his ultimate from the air.
Slow them down.
It looks like Obey Alliance are just letting him use the ult, and then they're coming back.
If they slow it down, it means Cabrakan can get back, but the Gold Fury may still go down and will. Obey get it, but the fight could continue.
Obey, or rather, No Numbers goes in and is able to stun 2 members. EmilZy is low, but that's enough pressure for them to keep him alive. CaptainTwig does go into the back to Jermain. That's exactly what he needed to do.
And now the drums from Prime, just whacking away as best he can, but Ataraxia is too far forward. He falls down. It's Obey on the run. Prime should be able to get away. Oh, he got caught in place. Has to beats to get away. Now the chase could really be on.
And he doesn't have a tier 2 tower to fall back to after Jermain's split push, but that's still too far forward for Elevate to keep going. But Graham, Obey get the Gold Fury and they get their disengage. Should they kept fighting, though?
No, I mean, it's fine. They lose 1 kill for that. It's not as big as it looks for Elevate to win that engagement. They kill Ataraxia. That's it. They get the Portal Demon. Portal Demon's not as worth as a Gold Fury. They're going to get a tier 1 in mid lane. That's where the real worth is for me. That tier 1 tower now going down opens the map up a little bit more for them. Gives them less of a defensive vantage point for Obey to start sieging from. They've got to fall deeper back, especially, and even on the left-hand side of the map now, the only safe point for Obey to fall back to is the tier 2 in mid. They've got no towers in left, and the one in mid being down causes more issues.
And really, that Portal Demon just kind of slows down Obey Alliance. I agree. It's not too big for Elevate in particular, but it slows down what Obey is trying to do, as they are continuing to put the pressure on them in this game. That's what they did so well last time. When they had a lead, they kept pushing. Just make sure they're pushing in the right spot.
I feel one thing that I noticed there is I said Xaliea, good play Xaliea, because he actually started body blocking for EmilZy to keep EmilZy alive. Pops his thorns and stands in front of his tree going, "Leave my tree alone!" The thing is, though, I think if Xaliea actually engages there, because Obey still seem to want to keep fighting, they could have sacked EmilZy in trade of the fight with having Xaliea use his abilities aggressively on the front line with the rest of his team. Xaliea appealing for another tank means that they lose some of that pressure that Xaliea would have provided, as well as EmilZy's not providing it either, because he's already out of the fight.
And that's what it felt like. I wasn't quite sure if the call was to retreat or to go in. Xaliea actually using the lurking in the waters, trying to force them back from taking this tier 1 tower. EmilZy's here. He is able to tail up and knock up 2 members and get a root off, but the tier 1 still falls.
Very risky. EmilZy's coming in for an ult, but he's not going to get time to do it before he's bursted all the way down. EmilZy made out. Meditation comes into play from Xaliea to keep up his fellow Guardian.
And CaptainTwig went back in on Jermain. Through the side comes PrettyPriMe, looking for damage. They do end up taking Jermain, but it's 1-for-1 that's fallen so far. Dardez does fall to the poison, though. Double kill for CaptainTwig, as Ataraxia gets no numbers.
And now he says his head. So Twig dies to Jermain, but Jermain dies to Twig, and the poison spread. Now Obey can look towards the Fire Giant.
Cherryo went in.
He did. He's trying to keep Prime in combat and just keep him busy if he can, but the Fire Giant's still getting done.
Fire Giant is still getting done, and there's not really a way for Elevate to try and get into this one. Looks like it's DeathPanter. EmilZy's too low to be the front line. Xaliea, it's going to be up to you to keep him away.
I don't know about still continuing the Fire Giant. Maybe bring down Cherryo. Panther's pretty low too. Prime's in trouble, has to Aegis. Good patience from Cherryo. Deletes PrettyPriMe.
And now Cherryo's going to use his own Aegis to try and get away. Xalia's here. It looks like he doesn't quite have the pluck available. EmilZy coming around, but he could have got blown up. Ataraxia does take Cherryo, but perfectly slows down their aggression on the Fire Giant.
Not that bad. bad. I don't mind Cherryo dying there. You know why?
Right.
Because he stops the fire giant more than anything else. I like Prime. Prime's decision to try and keep him busy was great and keep baiting him in. But the bad news is Cherryo just saw that Aegis coming and went, no, son. I know that. I was waiting for that. So as soon as that goes down, Prime's like, well, guys, I'll see you in a few minutes.
And you felt right away like they really had a good chance to slow down that fire giant push. To me, the call didn't seem clear from Obey about how they wanted to respond to Cherryo's aggression. And Cherryo just kind of did whatever he could. He's like, everyone's low. If you're in front of me, I'll damage you. EmilZy can't zone me. PrettyPriMe can't do it alone. And he kind of was enough to force him back.
I would have preferred to just see the whole of Obey collapse back to the fire giant straight away. Like, go straight to the fire, pressure the fire, bring in Cherryo. And when Cherryo initiates, turn and burn him. Just turn and burn him.
Yeah.
And even if you don't get the fire giant, you get him for free and nobody on your team dies. Instead, it was a bit of a, do we do this? Do we do this? And that's where it kind of faltered just a little bit. Not enough to cause him, you know, to lose anything too much. As the last engagement showed, Obey can really fight too.
And they're still very close. Only about 2,000, 2,400 or so gold separate these two teams right now. That's not really anything to write home about 26 minutes into a game. And that's where we are right now. Obey Alliance once again slugging it out with Elevate in game 2 here.
And Panther doing okay in the mid lane as well. Level 18, just a little bit behind PrettyPriMe, who once again having a fantastic game. But you're bound to on Raijin. We've already talked about why he's going to have such a good game without being able to be focused down as much. Like I said, he's only going to die if he makes a mistake. His mistake was being too close to Cherryo and not having his escape up.
And that's what happened. Cherryo also made kind of the hero play, baiting out that Aegis though first. So you're right, he did play very well and ended up cleaning him out. But that whole call around that area wasn't very clear, but now we get a chance to regroup. Gold Fury very close to respawning. Fire Giant is still standing, so there are plenty of areas to start to fight, and it looks like Elevate are looking for a pick over here.
Remember what I said about having no towers on this left-hand side of the map? It's going to be tricky. Twig going in, though, trying to cause some problems. Beads early on. Now his Beads is down.
And now he's getting rooted out. Sunbreaker, though, does
Xaliea.
come over the top of Ataraxia to lock him down.
Goodbye.
But Xaliea gets trapped in the shard device. Jermain cleans that one up. PrettyPrime's ultimate is going to be on cooldown, too, without getting much out of that.
And it wasn't just Xaliea dying there that was great. It was Dardez's wall zoned 3 members of Obey away from the fight. Like, hey, guys, you couldn't watch Xaliea die as we just whack away at him, and you can't do anything about it.
And now Elevate have taken the Gold Fury and all but even this game up. At this point, less than 1,000 gold separate the teams. It's very, very even at this point now, Graham. And Elevate are looking good, even when they're a little bit behind. Even when Obey are the ones with pressure, they can respond.
Elevate with a team that most of Europe was scared of coming into this because you just don't know what they're going to pull out and how they're going to play. But this team is looking so good right now. Scary to think that Obey could end up in the wild cards. And everyone at home probably thinks, you know, Obey versus Elevate, 3-0 Obey. We'll see him at Worlds. It's the other set of the day that's going to be the big one. This could be the best set of the day. I'm not joking, because Obey won't be too scared.
And we heard it here. Everyone, like you said, all the pros knew. We could hear those rumblings that Elevate could show up here and do well against Obey Alliance. Now, though, trying to force his Portal Demon, blinking in one more time as CaptainTwig trying to lock down Cherryo. Rathatira does knock up several members, and Cherryo's got to run.
Double shell coming into play, though, to keep Cherryo topped up away from the poison. No numbers on zone duty, going to keep EmilZy away from the fight, who did a good job zoning away Elevate for a moment. But the damage dealer's still fine for Elevate.
That's right. Just about everyone but EmilZy is still healthy. That's why we see Obey continuing to push in, and Cherryo has to hang back because he doesn't have Wisp to keep him going. Obey Alliance take the Portal Demon, but now Xalia's getting locked down.
Oh, big Thunder Crash from Prime, who went in dangerously there. The ultimate is not good enough to keep him alive. Sun's rained down from Ataraxia, but still, everyone on Elevate is still alive.
And locked in here is Xaliea. He's in a position to get taken down, and he does. DeathPanter cleans that one up despite the Portal Demon going down. It's Elevate who are the ones with the aggression.
Teleport coming through as well from No Numbers, who's back to the fight. Even though he picked that one up. I've not seen it used too much. But he will get straight back with full health again. Portal Demon and Fire Giant. This is the problem. Portal Demon's still up. Portal Demon's still up, and they could see Twig come back through.
Well, let's go ahead and take a listen in here. Thanks to Sennheiser to Elevate's comms.
Can you steal with her? Can you steal with her? I'm on HP. I have to bar.
Can we stay on fire?
I'm on
Do
HP.
you have a stun numbers?
No.
No. I can't.
Are we staying on fire or not?
Serqet is down.
I need help.
We can
Group up. Serqet behind. Just kill this guy. Serqet behind.
I have a cripple.
I'm low. No, I say just
They
reset.
run a portal. No, portal stem.
Maybe we can still go in. Like, who are you still here? He has no beat.
I'm healing.
Just reset.
Can I have blue? Can I have blue?
I thought you guys could kill Serqet. My bad. I could have killed.
I would kill.
With my ult, and we can't like lock her down.
Okay.
And we see their Elevate recognizing they can't quite take the Fire Giant, but they do take the team fight, slowing down Obey. And now things really are all even up between these two teams. No one's able to win by a large enough margin here, Graham.
Very, very good fight between the two, though. The big key there is what we saw from Cherryo in the last Fire Giant attempt from Obey was he kind of sacked himself to make sure they couldn't get it. Same thing just happened with Twig. He didn't sack himself, though. He kept them so busy that they couldn't do the Fire Giant. Dardez was forced back to base, had low health. You heard him say that. And the rest of the team, you know, DeathPanter and Jermain, like, well, we can't really one of us tank this and then also deal with Twig at the same time because the Guardians are on zone duty. The delay ends up coming out okay for Obey and keeping this game almost absolutely even. Look at the gold. I don't know about experience, but gold is almost exactly the same.
And I like what we were hearing from Cherryo in these comms, man. The way he's talking, like, we can just kill him. Let's just take him down. His calls are, he knows he's confident on this Cabrakan right now. He's feeling it, and he's looking to try and shut him down. They couldn't get the Fire Giant, but once again, no numbers is going into the backline where he and Dardez are trying to control Xaliea and EmilZy, but the rest of the damage dealers are in the back, and they're fine.
Yeah, it wasn't really much of a good engagement from Elevate there. They were trying to use the choke point, but the Hunters were too busy trying to go for the fire more than anything else. They could wall them off with Dardez and look to burst it down, but Obey might feel confident after that nice little play that we just saw.
EmilZy couldn't get the pluck. He was looking to try and isolate someone in that engagement and get the initiation, but instead they'll back up. But as you said, that Raijin damage going through on Raijin is very strong.
Yeah, that Raijin damage is going to cause problems, especially when they group up. And the one thing Elevate do want to do is kind of group up with these Guardians, but that means it bounces. It's going to bounce a little bit more. It's going to cause a couple of problems.
Bow, yeah. Odysseus bow is coming out for Ataraxia. Also going to go crashing through the team fight just off a couple of successful in-hands. And those are good ones to pick up because, as you said, they are looking to group. And CaptainTwig is looking to try and initiate. Actually, proccing that on Kile was no numbers there, but it's on such a low cooldown.
You see, I know why they've got DeathPanter on the right-hand side clearing out waves here because he needs a little bit more farm to finish off his build. But Jermain's much a better target to do that just because he can influence the fight with his ult still, even if he's not involved from the start of it. Would have been nicest to see Jermain there. Just tricky that it's Panther that needs the actual gold right now to finish off his build is the reason he's the one that's maybe going to be late to these rotations if these fights are going to be extended.
And everyone's playing so patiently, not able to find enough to get an initiation or anyone here, but my eyes are going to be on Cherryo. Cherryo for Elevate and CaptainTwig for Obey Alliance. Blinking in was Cherryo, looking to start this team fight off. The wall from Dardez keeps EmilZy isolated, but he actually Wrath of Terras to knock Cherryo up. Sunbreaker comes down too, but thanks to the shells, Cherryo was able to get out of there for the moment. Obey Alliance still looking to push down this tier 1.
They'll get a tier 1 tower. The wall will slow them down for a second, but this tier 1 should fall down if they're lucky. They might be a bit scared with the new minion wave coming in here. Nice ricochet onto Cherryo, though.
Yeah, good bounce from Ataraxia. You're right. This tier 1 now tower it's fallen down. No way that's going to defend anything at this point. So now they'll back up. Obey get a small win there. Like they're the ones who are still healthier, but again, nothing big able to come off. They're winning by such small margins.
Now the funny thing is, like now we get down to the nitty-gritty of small margins, Finch. What you're looking at is actually relic usage in that engagement too. Relics do come into play, and you can see that Dardez had to use both of his. Both the shells are now down on Elevate, which means if they go for the all-in strat with Twig's ultimate being available now, they don't have these shells to keep the Guardians topped up, the same way that we saw Cherryo survive the last engagement. So, a little bit more defensive out of Elevate for a few minutes while they wait for those relics to come back available.
And that's what they're doing. We see both CaptainTwig and Ataraxia go back to base, trying to make sure they're full and fresh for this next engagement. I don't think everyone on Elevate felt comfortable with the back just yet. Like Jermain and DeathPanter definitely still stuck around.
I do want to see maybe Obey go a little bit aggressive here, just realizing those shells are now on cooldown. Yes, they've lost, you know, EmilZy's relics, but it is an advantage power play for them not to have to deal with these 2 shells and the sprint that Elevate once had.
Cherryo has gone in onto Xaliea. Actually got the freeze off from Dardez too, but Xaliea is just a tanky crocodile. He's still above half health at this point, and he's getting those wisps sticking over from EmilZy, so he'll be just fine.
Yeah, it's more of a fight over this portal demon here, and they're not really scared about letting the Hunters just poke it down. Nice ricochet again. That really hurt, actually. Jermain got chipped heavily in that little ricochet combo.
PrettyPrime's kind of standing in those bees, though, taking way too much from the honey. That's not what he wanted. Actually, now the ultra from PrettyPrime comes down to Cherryo. Cherryo's gone already from this team fight. As you said before, Jermain too low. That's enough for CaptainTwig to blink in and go for him, and he gets him with the in-hand. DeathPanter might be next. DeathPanter is next. Xaliea gets credit for that one. 3 members fall. Obey come back. back to the Fire Giant.
Riddle me this, Finch. If your carries go left and your tanks go right, which way and which group's going to die quicker? It's going to be the carries straight away, taken out with a blink in from Twig, and that's what we're looking for. EmilZy's ultimate was the big telling point in that more than anything else. I believe he hit 4 members in that engagement, denied Elevate from doing anything. And what was the big issue there? No shells. That's why he died so quick.
That might have been the cleanest team fight win for anyone all game, actually. Obey Alliance get 3 for 0. Everyone's still looking topped off thanks to EmilZy. All 5 members have Fire Giant. They're going to come down on this Phoenix.
And that was actually Elevate just not realizing what they were missing in that last engagement. They should have known both their shells were on cooldown. That was what was keeping the tanks topped up. They weren't available that time round, and they still were a little bit too far forward. They were the ones almost looking at the aggression onto the likes of Xaliea, and EmilZy's like, oh, this could be a great situation. Let's give it a go. And full commit from Obey means happy days.
Now they'll fall back, get this Portal Demon, and this is just, they just got the Fire Giant and went right down and got the Phoenix immediately.
Big swing.
So that means they've got plenty of time to come back and try and take these tier 2s and siege these remaining Phoenixes and set themselves up. They lost during the Phoenix siege last game.
They did.
So they're going to be particularly careful making sure they do it this time.
Funny enough is when you actually look at the comp from Elevate, very similar in terms of wave clear again.
Yeah.
Little bit better though with having AMC this time round instead of having, you know, they had Ul and Ho Yi, whose wave clear on defense is a little bit trickier for them. At least AMC's got a little bit more range with that honey and with those bees to throw it out from distance, and the bees will spread, cause some problems. But defensive-wise, again, they're going to struggle because they don't have much of a wave clear option against the aggression that Obey could put onto them with his minions.
Their clear might be a little bit better, but I think what they're missing is the mobility. What went well for them in that defense is they were able to jump into the backline and do damage to some of the carries of Obey, and then they get the big wipe and they go in and clean up on the Phoenix, on the Titan. This time, though, I don't know if they'd be able to do that if Obey come in a little too much. Can they get back there and slow down Prime and Ataraxia?
I think it's going to be the case of, I think Elevate should just play very far back to an extent. They're probably going to have to be the initiators, though, in the engagement, which is what they wouldn't want to do. They'd rather let let Obey initiate first, but if they do that, they'll lose the fight, I feel. They're going to have to rely a little bit more on engaging very well with Cherryo in this blink, because he's the only one with ranged engage. That's it. That's the only thing they've got, is this Cabrakan with a blink. The others manually running at people is not going to make a good time for you, especially when you've got Xaliea just tail whipping to disrupt as much as possible. And then you still got EmilZy like, oh, 3 of you are now next to me? Ult.
And 36 minutes in here, near 37, Elevate realized they cannot fight on those tier 2 towers, and they got to let those go, instead fight on these Phoenixes. Obey did them all in a clean sweep, and everyone's just about full build anyway, so it's not as if that was impactful lead-wise or hurting the team fight. It's just now they'll have a clearer path to these Phoenixes.
Much better situation for Obey as well to split push one again.
There
we go.
Cherryo. And
it's the beads.
Yeah, he wasn't able to get anything out of that one. Instead, he'll back up. But as you said, the cooldowns were what are important. Ataraxia does not have beads now.
No, he does have beads. Am I lying? Oh, no, he uses beads. Okay, I was like, wait, what? I got very confused there because I thought for some reason he was playing the B, and I'm like, wait, the B still got his beads on. I'm very confused, but nope, he's playing the Ho Yi this game round. So Cherryo's initiation is now down, which means everyone in Elevate has to manually run at Obey to try and engage this fight.
It means Ataraxia has to be particularly mindful of his positioning, and EmilZy has to hold that Wrath of Terra. Pulls in Dardez, though, who immediately looks for a freeze. Cherryo uses the walls to lock down Ataraxia,
Jermain,
who does end up falling up into the Taiko drums. Is PrettyPriMe trying to find some damage. He does help clean up Jermain, so they traded Hunter for Hunter.
And it still means it's a win for Obey because they can march on with the Fire Giant, with the sustain from EmilZy and those Lotus Crowns. The pull's good onto onto Cherryo. Phoenix is still alive, though.
But there's minions pouring in from that right side. There's a bit of a split focus here happening. CaptainTwig's low, but he's still tanky. He's able to jump away. Xaliea gets a little bit of disruption and backs off. So the Phoenix in mid still fully healthy.
Twig might go for the backline here. He's very low, but he might look to engage onto DeathPanter, who's very low on mana here. But No Numbers takes out Xaliea. No Numbers, one hit from Death. Twig goes on looking for the kisses, and DeathPanter smashes him in the face. EmilZy gets the kill with a whisper. Now EmilZy's in trouble. Obey have done it again. They've thrown the fight at the Phoenixes. They won't lose the game, though, I don't think they can lose the game off this one. It's still going to be both teams involved. The Phoenix and Right will respawn as well.
I agree. I don't think this is going to be the end for Obey Alliance, but it's definitely shades of what happened to them last game. Elevator doing so well with the counter initiations when they defend these Phoenixes. I said they're going to have a hard time getting to the back line, but they just walked up to Ataraxia again. Actually, EmilZy pulls Dardez in, and Dardez gets the freeze off, so they kind of made up for the lack of machine by bringing Dardez back there.
Yeah, and the big key there is obviously even the Hunter, so both the carries for Obey did survive. They both still have their Aegis up, so they weren't fully focused. It was just the burst damage that Elevate managed to put out. double hunters do that. I mean, Jermain trading early on, getting that kill onto Xaliea was really big, but then he died soon after, and that just slowed them down for a moment. But the rest of the squad did great work to keep Obey off that Phoenix and get that defense solid.
Now Obey going to have to regroup and try this one again. We're already 40 minutes into it, so it's been just a long set here, Graham. So there's not to worry too much about the gold or XP difference at this point. It's going to be an even fight over here for this Fire Giant, as even our two supports are both chilling at 19.
It's very rare that you see hunters buy wards at any level of play, except when they're full build. And then you'll be like, oh, yeah, I guess I'll buy some wards now.
Or maybe after they get like ganked
when they've been died 3 times.
Twig, like,
when they've died 3 times and they're like, okay, my support's not warding anymore, I guess I'll buy some. So Portal Demon will probably be the fight first of all, yet again. I'm pretty sure Obey and people are in the lead at taking that down, but they can't make the mistakes they did last time around.
They can't make those same
that
mistakes.
Was a lot of damage.
Looking no numbers is moving up forward. It was really the pressure coming out from that Artio that had a big impact for him there. Obey Alliance kind of had to back off for the moment, but again, EmilZy is keeping him healed up.
I want Elevate to just hold for a minute. They've got a couple of relics due up any second. The shells, both shells will be up in 10 seconds, and you've also got the Aegis for Cherryo, which will allow him to weather the storm. Obey probably have the timers on these, so they've got to time this well themselves, and that's why they're coming into the Portal Demon a little bit earlier, so they might not have all these relics available.
And looks like Elevate doesn't want to let him have that Portal Demon. Hitting on a PrettyPriMe is Cherryo. He's able to do it. The Sunbreaker comes down, though, to immediately shut it off. No numbers having to run back away. CaptainTwig jumps in, and DeathPanter is the call from him. PrettyPrime's in the Tycho drums, but the Aegis keeps him alive just for the moment. CaptainTwig gonna have to back off.
Gotta get him, though, at the same time. Jermain will pick him up. Jermain on the front lines, though, looking to whack away, but who are the targets he's looking for? It's gonna be on to Ataraxia, who is flanking around the corner. His Aegis is down, his speeds are down. No numbers is forcing him out. Xaliea peel duty, but now it's going to be the Crocodile that's no longer going to smile. He's going to be routed round to the left-hand side, but EmilZy could be looking towards no numbers.
This team fight's all over the place here, Graham. Yes, DeathPanter fallen. Yes, CaptainTwig has fallen, but Jermain is still up for Elevate. That's where most of their damage is coming from. Obey Alliance are backing up at this point. Looks like for the moment. Oh, but there's the teleport from no numbers. He's here. He's fully healthy. He's going back in.
Sure, but he can't get the root off at anyone, so he's going to try and target down the tree. The stun's good, but there's no follow-up from the team. So this is just zone work for now from no numbers. The rest of the team weren't really there. They can get control of the Portal Demon Pit. Still dead is Twig for 23 seconds. Panthers around the same sort of time. In this 4v4, this zone work should be fine. Jermain can sustain off this with the Devourer's Gauntlets.
These two teams are so even here.
Really
another lengthy game. Xaliea is going in with that lurking in the waters. Gets
locked
in by the walls, and he gets frozen. They can't make it in. PrettyPriMe does have the Tycho jumps available for him. Instead, turns around to try and lock down no numbers. Wrath the Tear is enough, so they do at least take down the Artio.
And where's the Portal Demon? I don't think it's slow enough to check. Okay, they will get the Portal. Maybe Prime. Looking for the steal. No, won't be able to find it. Panthers back straight to the front line, but rest of the team has to fall off. Portal Demon to Elevate. Gold lead. All obeys, doesn't really matter. Kills, this stage of the game, they're not really telling that much of a story of how close this has been. But with the man advantage of sorry, it's not even a man advantage, but the Portal Demon is the real key to allowing them to look towards this Fire Giant.
And that's what they're doing. DeathPanter already has it down below half health. Jermain now here to help them chunk it as well. EmilZy getting caught out by Dardez and Cherryo. Twig's there on the back end, but he really can't go in safely. No one's actually locking him down. He blinks in for it, but the shards of ice are going to be enough to help him keep it. They do. Elevate takes it. He goes on to Jermain, though, not able to stop him. Jermain finishes him off.
Jermain will live as well, which is really big for them. And now Fire Giant on 4 members of Elevate. That's a tier 2 on the right-hand side for sure. With Xaliea spawning in 8 to 10 seconds, they won't be able to go for a Phoenix just yet, but they can take down these tier 2 towers. The last one remaining now in the mid lane. This is now power play for Elevate again.
It absolutely is. Elevate now have the Fire Giant once again. Obey Alliance not able to do the Phoenix Siege. They end up falling. Elevate even things up. Come back. They take the Fire Giant. Now they're the ones pushing tier 2 tower and mid falls. And everyone's here except for no numbers for Elevate while Twig sits on another 35-second respawn. They're looking to push.
Good wall, but just a little bit of poke coming out from the beast.
No
freeze missing from Dardez there. EmilZy's taking a bit of free poke, but he's tanky enough to weather it for now. It's all about keeping that Phoenix alive.
Ataraxia already got chunked by the blink in from Cherryo. Mid-Phoenix is there. Mid-Phoenix is gone. Xaliea has to back up as well with the pluck. Elevate look to come over and find a little bit more structures after a strong team fight in mid.
Twig still down for 10 seconds, and the call is either Elevate go to backdoor this Phoenix before Twig spawns, or they push the minion wave in and Twig's back up. The call is go for it before Twig gets up. They've got to do this quick, though.
They got the freeze off onto Xaliea. Jermain put the damage out, but Thorns actually returned a good bit of it. Phoenix is at half health, and as you said, Twig is here, and Twig's alive. The pluck Hook pulls Dardez back underneath the Phoenix, but the rest of them come in. Good Wrath. The Terror actually knocks up several members from EmilZy. PrettyPriMe gets the kill onto one member. CaptainTwig gets Dardez.
And now the run is on. It's Elevate running away, and
damage.
Prime will just slap him in the back of the head. Cherryo now on his own. It's only going to be no numbers that survives, and I just called it beforehand. You either risk it and go for that Phoenix, or Twig's going to come back. And Twig came back, and it turned.
Is that enough for them, though? This right side Phoenix is already in a weakened state. It's 50-plus respawn timers on 4 members. Only no numbers is alive. Obey Alliance are looking to come group in. And actually, let's go ahead and take a Sin Hydra, listen in, and see what their plan is.
Yeah, I need it. Heal in 10 again.
It's fine, like 40 seconds. Play patient.
Calm it down.
When's the next heal?
5. We need to push in, kind
Ult's up in 20. We're fine.
I don't have ult for 25, guys.
Don't fight, just keep grouping and healing.
Yeah. Just go straight Titan, right?
Yeah. That's his dash down. Maybe we go on? Nah,
I'm on Phoenix, Get Phoenix.
Go on him, Go on him. No. End.
Kill him.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, that's good.
We got 10 seconds, that's perfect.
Good job.
Nice.
Obey Alliance, clean up, no numbers. Obey Alliance got the only number they need. They're bringing that Titan down to 0, taking it to 1-1. Elevate versus Obey Alliance. Who could have guessed it would look this even, Graham?
It feels like it looks like a calamity of throws on throws, but it's because they're both playing so well. That's the funny thing. It looks like throw on throw, it's Game of Throws, but it's not. It's actually just well played, thought out strategies from both. Elevate did the same thing that Obey did game 1 at the end of the day. They stuck around too long. They bit off more than they could chew.
Yeah.
They knew the respawn timer of Twig. Twig wasn't the big instrumental part of that so much as EmilZy with the pull, which set the things up first of all.
Yeah,
then the Wrath of
Dardez
Terror.
in, yeah.
The Wrath of Terror after that to zone him away from getting to PrettyPriMe was huge. And with Twig not being involved in that whatsoever, meant that when he got to that fight, the cleanup crew was there.
In particular, I know that you're right. Yes, it was EmilZy in that, but who was really doing all the damage for him all game long, Graham? To me, it felt like it was Ataraxia. He was looking nuts for him in that game, especially on that Hu-Yi, but either way, what a nuts game for him. It felt like whoever won the last team fight won the game, really.
And it always, well, I mean, to be fair, that's always the case with Smite, right?
But I mean, like, it was just that back and forth. Like, whoever just gets it in the end will win.
I know,
but you're right. Yeah, usually you don't
well.
lose a team fight, then win. You're right.
I don't think we'll see those comps again either. I think we're going to see a lot of that out of Elevate all day, though, of like, let's go triple Guardian, double Hunter. But they're going to have to be careful because Obey is starting to find answers.
Well, let's go ahead and get it over there to the desk for it. Taco, Toli, and Jeff Hindla. Go ahead.
It really does seem as though Obey has a lot of answers, and Elevate actually falling in somewhat similar fashion to Obey that they were able to turn around in game number 1. But what a match from these two teams.
These last 5 minutes just basically dictated what happened in this game. It wasn't really a matter of what happened in the early to mid game at all, considering how close it was. It was just about trying to get the cleaner Phoenix sieges.
Phoenixes have been an issue for both these teams. At the very last time you saw them split the focus between we're going to go on the Phoenix and we're going to go on the Sobek, and then Prime just came in.
Yeah, PrettyPriMe was also on the left-hand side during Obey's Phoenix Siege when they tried to split it up. It worked out well for them in the first game when he was playing Nemesis. He got the pick onto no numbers Xing, but the second game playing the Serqet couldn't find the pick. I think it was actually Ataraxia that got picked during that mid-Phoenix Siege, and then the rest of Obey Alliance started to crumble.
CaptainTwig might be struggling a little bit working his way into the back line of Elevate, but PrettyPriMe has had no issues whatsoever. His Raijin damage has been top of the charts every single match, and he has just been doing work on this god.
And you were talking about it actually behind the scenes of like how surprised you were that Elevate allowed Obey Alliance to get this pick yet again. But this is going to be game 3 now coming up with these teams tied up 1 apiece. Do you expect Raijin to go through here, Jeff?
You gotta get Prime off Raijin. He's just look, watch him play. He's making plays consistently.
It's just way too much damage in situations that you would normally expect Elevate to be coming out on top. Suddenly, out of nowhere, it's the taiko drums. I mean, right at the very end there, before they got the full deicide, it was actually DeathPanter trying to escape on the AMC, and as soon as that one connected, it just completely destroyed him. Health bar gone entirely. I don't even know if his Aegis was just coming back up, because it did show that he had his Aegis available, but I do believe that it was just coming back up for him, and either way, so much damage, and there's really nothing you can do about it.
No, not at all. And honestly, PrettyPriMe got a lot of help from EmilZy to start off the game. That pull through the wall onto DeathPanter's and Muzen Cobb, it was just, how can you really expect that if you're Elevate?
you can. Sometimes you just get the Sylv pulls, and when you get the Sylv pulls, they feel really good.
And it's crazy to think about as well, because Sylvanus, notoriously one of those gods that you'd expect to just be punished more often than not, but EmilZy's been really on point with his positioning and also incredibly mindful of his team, and map awareness like that is so important whenever you're playing those more immobile Guardians.
Yeah, Obey definitely felt like they saw Elevate's aggression coming from a mile away with those 2 words.
I also love the combo of Sylv and Raijin, so if someone tries to focus Sylv, he just throws everyone in the air, and then Raijin just cleans up everything inside. It's one of the best combos.
Just pulling them back in. Even now, you might be able to beat away the initial knockup, but you're not going to be able to beat away those pulls after the fact.
Well, it's basically a clean slate for both of the teams if you take away the fact they're 1-1, but that's pretty much 0-0, so a hard reset, so to say. But how do you think both of these teams are going to react now that they've both gotten a chance to see 2 different kinds of compositions with like same sort of mentality behind them?
I think Elevate's going to stick with a very similar 3 Guardian double ADC. They had a good chance of winning that game. I think they just slightly had issues with targeting and who they wanted to kill.
They tried to focus down PrettyPriMe, playing that Raijin there under that Cabrakan ultimate, but just the initial CC that he provides with the taiko drums, he even managed to Aegis at the last possible moment. There was no way to really lock down this Raijin in the late game, even though he went a little bit resilient with the Warlock Sash, I think, as well, so he was able to survive a lot of that burst.
Yeah, the Warlock Sash is something I only really see Prime do a lot, and it's working out for him, right? That bit of extra health, it'll just win you games, right? Because when people full commit and they can't kill you, they just dump their entire kit.
And this map control chart, I actually really like this for game number 2, because even though Obey had the dominance on the buffs, it still felt as though Elevate was fairly in control of that game, basically the game outcome, and as well as just the general pacing of the match.
Anything could have happened in the last 5 minutes, honestly. It was Elevate that got that fire giant at the 42-minute mark, where PrettyPriMe had to sacrifice himself trying to stop that or steal it away, wasn't successful in doing so. And this last team fight, or not last one, but before the fire giant attempt, it was where Obey kind of staggered after that mid-Phoenix siege, where I believe Ataraxia fell really early on. PrettyPriMe splitting in the dual lane side of things, couldn't find that initial kill like he did on No Numbers.
It's basically just been Battle of the Hunters is what we've been seeing a lot. I mean, there's been 3 on the map every single match because of what Elevate likes to run. And as Ataraxia, since he's the lone hunter, how do you think that would affect his gameplay personally, knowing that he's having to go against 2?
It's really hard, right? Because if you die, then your objective damage is gone, your siege is gone, and you just always have to recognize that. I think you actually have to play either you all in and you know you can get both their hunters, or you have to play really bad, because if one of their hunters lives, they're taking towers, they're taking golds, they're taking portals, and they just don't have a problem with losing one because they have 2.
And doing a good job with Xaliea that game, playing the Sobek, had a lot of space control, being able to tail whip all that front line from Elevate away this time around, making it more difficult for Cherryo to get into that backline, actually switching things up, playing this Cabrakan. It's not normally we see very often in the jungle role.
Yeah, it's not, but Cab jungle, I mean, he has a lot of damage, he has good setup, and he just... What do you do when a Cabrakan's running at you? You just kind of die a lot of the times.
Cherryo just having such a diverse god pool, which is why Obey Alliance are always trying to target him out in these picks and bans, taking away the Naja and the Athena consistently in games 1 and 2, and it still gives him a lot of options the way his playstyle is. He's just able to do that, just hold W and find the kill.
And Jeff, as a support player yourself, when you saw EmilZy picking up that Phantom, do you think that he actually felt as threatened, or was that more... like, would you have preferred to see a Shell there?
So Shell's really good into double ADC, but I see why you went Phantom, right? I mean, there's a lot of walls. Sylv can't leave the walls, and then when you upgrade Phantom, it stops Guardians from bursting people. It helps against consistent damage because of the damage reduction on Phantom, and I think Phantom was a great pickup.
Well, I think that Obey certainly used their strengths to their advantage, and that's part of the reason why we ended up seeing them come out on top in game number 2. But now, with pretty much the reset happening and these guys really just coming into this 3rd match, we've been seeing a lot of Kakolan and Osiris bans. Do you expect to see the initial banning phase to still have those 2 eliminated?
I think I think we'll see Cuckoo, and I think instead of Osiris, we're going to see Raijin. can't see them giving prime margin again.
It just seems that Elevate are trying to focus out Xaliea with those 2 initial bans, and like you said before, PrettyPriMe has been such an important factor with this Raijin. I think now it's time for Elevate to reevaluate how they're going to approach picks and bans.
And Xaliea also, we haven't really spoken too much about him, but his gameplay so far, as somebody who's only recently come back to the pro scene, I mean, he's been around the scene for a while, played professionally, and has always been a solid player, but how do you think that this is for him being back at LAN?
I mean, Xalia's been playing pretty solid, right? I mean, you know, there's some mistakes here and there, but as a whole, he's doing his job. He's going in, he's helping his team, he's just being annoying, and that's really what you want out of your solo laner, right? You just want to make the other team not have fun, and I think he's doing a great job. Playing
the Sobek in the solo lane. When's the last time we saw Sobek in the solo lane? I can't even recall it, honestly. You know, doing a good job penetrating that backline like you were talking about, and it's very difficult to really ban away Xaliea, who really likes to play almost anything in the solo lane. Back in the day, he used to play Isis in the solo lane.
How did you feel about the meditation Sobek, though, for solo?
That's where I would have liked to see the shell, right? Med in solo, I mean, I see kind of the value of it, but why not just go shell for double AC, right? Like, you upgrade the shell, and then, I mean, you can eat, people just eat double crits for free because of the block stacks. I think shell would have made that game way easier for them.
I also feel as though there were moments where the meditation would come out and you kind of just forget. You're like, oh, he has that active still to pull out. So a little bit of quirky gameplay there, but I think that his prioritization of looking to pull whoever it was at EmilZy, there was one moment where we actually saw the chain effect happen where EmilZy gets the pull in and then Xaliea is immediately following that up with his own pluck. And how would you feel having to face against that with knowing that that threat's possible?
No. As a support, I mean, especially if I'm Dardez, right, and I'm playing something like Ymir and I get Sylv pulled into Sobek pulled, like, I'm just ulting and hoping that I can get some part of my ult out.
And I mean, all around, I think that these guys really did a great job at adapting to each other's strategies. But most importantly, we touched on the Hunters a little bit, but now we get a quick look into Ataraxia's mind as well.
Our current iteration of Obey is the most confident I've felt. Back in Spring Splint, we felt very confident. Summer Split, less so, and then we didn't do well as a result, I'd say. But now with Xaliea, I feel probably the most confident. Going into Worlds in Season 3, we also felt very confident. We had a fantastic understanding of the meta as an energy buff, and I think that showed is how we both got to the finals. My peak confidence in Smite was after Game 4 in the finals. And I was so sure that we were going to win it at that point. I was like, yeah, we've got this. And then we didn't, so. My expectations for Super Regionals is that we're going to win, and it's been quite scary for me. I always get really anxious before we play and before lands in general, but I see that as a good thing because it's how much I care, you know, it reminds you why you're doing it, and as awful as it is at the time to go through those emotions, it makes it worth it. But this one has been a particularly more anxious one for me because it's the first time where I feel like we should win. On paper, no disrespect to Elevate, but we should have the easiest bracket to get to Worlds, and that's made it harder to really process it because at least when it's an even matchup by everyone else's expectations, I don't know, you just don't get so ahead of yourself, but now that everyone thinks we're going to win, it's a lot harder to deal with. My team's play style is to win without me, I would say. They just let me die. I don't know why. Most of the team fights, we won, I died, usually because I'm too aggressive and I dash in, and I'm the initiator on the team, you know, I shot call, I'm the carry, and I also initiate fights by jumping in and dashing in because all our front line are scared, so. I always look for the 1v1s and the outplay potential. I never really just chill, and that's something I've been working on, you know, is really just sitting back, spending some time with my tower, getting to know it.
That is probably one of the most honest things that I've seen all year long. And I think my favorite part about that video was Ataraxia noting that a lot of people really are kind of expecting Obey to go all the way this year.
Considering the way they played in the online portion, I definitely would expect them to go the distance as well. Elevate just barely making it here to Super Regionals, and I gotta say that Obey are finally the first-time favorites heading into a LAN.
I mean, the last couple of LANs, Obey's been extremely good, right? They've been doing great online as well. I mean, I expect them to win this set, even though Elevate's been playing great. But beforehand, I would come in and think it was just Obey. And
as somebody like Ataraxia, though, who's made those trips to Worlds, but always seeming to come up short. He's come up short twice now with the second place victory. So third time's the charm. It really seems to be the motto here for Ataraxia and PrettyPriMe as well. I mean, he's kind of in the same boat as him. It's just most people always refer to Ataraxia because they just remember that moment on the stage of him and Raffer standing up there at Worlds. And as a player, Jeff, what do you think is really going through Ataraxia's head right now?
Right now, Ataraxia just wants to win. He wants to play the games. He wants to play the best he can and win, and then be good to go for Worlds.
That's always seeming to be the main goal here, is all these teams going to Worlds. And you've actually talked about it a few times where groups is the #1 place that you would not want to be. And what is your main reasoning for that? I
don't want to be in this groups at all. I mean, look at all the teams that are there, right? There's, you know, potentially teams that thrive in 1v1, like in best of ones. I mean, Energy there, Space Station's there, Trifecta's there, Noble's there right now. Like, I don't want to play those teams in 1v1s at all.
There's just too many strategies that you can deploy in a best of 1 here. You can prepare as much as you want for best of 3, best of 5, but when you have a best of 1, you can literally invade, 5-man invade against Baron ranked same exact way and try to shut him down. So and it would potentially work.
I don't know about that one. I remember the last time I did that to you, and you actually came in raging at me.
Okay.
That was the Xing. The Xing invade.
Okay, and then I made fun of Xing for the rest of the game because we won, and then I played the game completely wrong just to give Xing a hard time.
It happens sometimes, but one thing that I know is definitely ready to happen as well is for these guys in game number 3. I mean, there's already got to be so much on edge happening because they're trying to sort everything out. And we've already mentioned that we don't want to see Raijin happening for Obey, and PrettyPriMe just is not permitted to have that Raijin again. Do you also feel as though Hu-Yi should maybe be eliminated from the pool?
I mean, Hu-Yi's strong, right? And he's been doing pretty good in both the games so far, but it's like this, right? I mean, you can see he's doing well and performing well, but is Hu-Yi the issue? I don't
think
know.
So personally, there's just too much to ban right now. If you look at the way the direction that Elevator's going between those Osiris and the Kukulkan, focusing out Xaliea, whereas Obey is focusing out Cherryo on the flip side with all these Guardians and Naja bans that he has. I don't think Hu-Yi is the answer. There will be prioritized though for sure. Hu-Yi providing so much space control with that ultimate, also a good boxer, especially in the jungle with such tight corridor placements. And I think that both of these teams will be kind of thriving off of that pick, but I don't think that they're going to be banning it anytime soon.
How do you feel Jermain felt about getting to play that Rum again? I mean, it was taken away from him in the last game. He didn't really have the opportunity because they wanted to go for their own like double hunter composition early on. But do you think that Jermain is going to consistently try and run the Rum back?
Yeah, absolutely. Jermain's snipes were fantastic. The way I think how he was playing team fights was extremely good. He knew exactly what he was doing on the God. You even saw him try and steal that Gold Fury, which I think there was some miscommunication. Like, because when Barra tries to steal gold, it's like, what's it at? What's it at? I just don't think he got a call. But when you're a ROM making those plays, that means, yeah, I'm going to steal this gold. I'm going in the air. That's mine. Like that's his mindset for it. So I love seeing him on. I love seeing him on the ROM. I just want to see him use his Aegis a little bit more.
Always fun getting to watch the players really get into the moment, and Jermain is certainly one of them. But speaking of the players, we're actually going to take it to a quick break and let them actually cool off a little bit themselves.
People act like they know me, but you don't really know me. I've been out here on my own. I've been grinding all alone. Yeah, get up after 9. We can pour out the wine. I got cash on my mind. Yeah, I don't really mind, and I don't have the time. Every day I go out, every day a new route that you know nothing about, nah. Why always me? Ooh, like I'm Balotelli. Ooh, why always me? Ooh, like I'm Balotelli. Telly. Yeah, why always me? Steady on my grind, I've been keeping me on leash. Why nobody see that I'm like Balotelli? Trying to get up on myself and nobody gon' help me. No, yeah. I don't wanna be alone no more. Lately I've been hanging in